العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam. First, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again. Allah has afforded us and granted us the tawfiq to have performed our Maghrieb Salaah with Jama'ah. Alhamdulillah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our Salah with Jama'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us sincerity and istiqamah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So far, we have discussed many chapters in this text of Imam al-Suyuti, rahimahullah, where he speaks about death and the situation and the condition of death at the time when maut comes to the person. And we have mentioned the best way a person can leave this dunya, obviously, is when a person is laying on his bed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is prior to that, Allah has guided him and Allah has inspired him to use his health and his time in obedience of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted him the ability to acknowledge his mistakes and to seek the forgiveness of Allah. And then at the time of maut, when he now finally reaches the moment where Allah has decided that now his time in this dunya has come to an end, he needs to leave this dunya, and Malakul Maut descends with his whole entourage of malaika coming with the kafan and the perfumes of Jannah. That is ultimately the best death a person can want. And the best way a person wants to leave this dunya. But the reality, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned, not everyone will experience that. There are certain people, and even though death is something which none of us can pinpoint when the time will be, but there are certain times that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, sends sickness, and Allah sends a sick bed, and Allah's given you time to prepare eventually for death. But there's an evening's chapter, short chapter Imam Suyuti rahimahullah brings, and this chapter deals with its sudden death. As Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in one hadith, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned in Inna min amarat as-sa'ah, that from the signs of the day of Qiyamah, from the signs of the end of time, is أن يظهر موت الفجأة, that a person will experience, and people we will experience, and we will see many people suddenly just suddenly die. In an instance, this morning they were alive, you spoke to them on the phone, an hour later they no more. Unexpected, even though death is always unexpected. No matter how much you expect it, it will always be unexpected. But that unexpectedness to an extent where there's nothing wrong with you. There's no sickness, there's no sign of death. And suddenly, the heart stops beating. Suddenly you find yourself in a car crash. Or whatever the reason might be, sudden death. And this is something which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in dua also used to ask Allah protection from. So the hadith Imam Suyuti rahimahullah brings, it is narrated on Abdullah ibn Ubayd ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu, قال سألت عائشة رضي الله عنها عن موت الفجأة أيكره. That he said that we asked Aisha radiallahu anha, they asked her regarding a sudden death. Is it something which is disliked? Is it something that is frowned upon? According to the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she asked and said, what would be the reason that it will be disliked or it will be frowned upon? And then she went to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She said, Sa'altu Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam an dhalika. She asked Rasul sallam regarding the sudden death. Rasul sallam responded beautifully. He says two things. First thing, rahatun lil mu'min wa akhdu asafin lil fajir. He says it is a rahatun lil mu'min. It is a glad tiding for a true believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is him going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while Allah is pleased with him. If he was a person who lived his life in the obedience of Allah, if it was a person who made sure that he always see that his affairs in this dunya is correct with others, if it is a person who lived, as Rasul Sallam says, Sallu salat al-mawaddi', that makes salah as if it is your last salah. If it is a person who performs salah and you worship Allah in this state that, this might be my last. This might be my last opportunity to worship Allah. If it is such a person who was aware of his condition and continuously seeks Allah's forgiveness and prepared for death, For him it will be good news. For him it will be a raha. For him it will be a pleasure to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it will be a pity for the one who was a fajr, a disbeliever in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the one who disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who was arrogantly involved in his sin, not been given the opportunity to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not been given the opportunity to ask Allah's forgiveness. For that person, says Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it will be a pity. For him it will be a shame. So yeah, my beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, we learn an important lesson that all of us, we all know when we were born. We can give you the date and we can give the year when we were born. But none of us can pinpoint when our death and how we will die and when we will die. Today again, Janaza, young man, 20 odd years old. Young man, 20 odd years old, Allah grant him Jannah and nasabah to the family. Heart attack. So young. So in an instance, Allah, with the command of Allah, the heart stops and where are we? What will be our condition? And that's why we should never have the attitude, I still have time, inshallah, one day when I'm older, when the grey start coming out, I'll start turning and making salah, or start becoming a better Muslim, or once I go for Hajj or for Umrah, then I'll start becoming a better Muslim. Because why? We don't know, we might not even see tomorrow. We don't know when our life will come to an end. So life is not meant to be wasted, my beloved brothers and sisters in Islam. And so we ask Allah to make us of those who will have this realization, who will live with this concept of Allah being in control of our life, and Allah stipulated when it will come, and we continuously make dua that, oh Allah, when death eventually comes to us, oh Allah, grant us, whether it be unexpected or whether it be with a sick bed, Ya Allah, oh Allah, grant it to be the most important thing that you are pleased with us. Let it be that when we leave this dunya, it is when we will meet you, Allah, that it be a meeting of happiness and pleasure. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who prepare and use our life and health Allah has given us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a tawfiq and understanding. For akhir da'wana alhamdulillah.